If you're like most people, you probably don't know everything that happened the year you were born. Some of this might feel like ancient history. Some might bring back memories, good or bad, and some you might find surprisingly relevant today. For those of you born in 1966, congratulations, you're turning 60. So sit back, relax, and let's look at 20 things that shaped life in America that year. And stick around for the last one, because this man was very influential in our childhood. New shows. What Gen Xers don't remember these shows? On January 12th, Batman premiered on ABC with Adam West in the cape, bringing campy pow and bam action to living rooms twice a week. Star Trek launched on September 8th, boldly taking viewers where no one had gone before. The show struggled with the ratings but built a devoted following that never quit. Just a few days later, on September 12th, the Monkees debuted, mixing music and comedy about a made-for-TV band that somehow became a real one. And on September 17th, Mission Impossible premiered, giving us the famous theme song and self-destructing tape recordings. That is, if you choose to accept your mission.
She looks very pretty when she's asleep.
I thought you might eventually notice that. That single statement indicates to me the first oncoming thrust of manhood, old chum.
Buckle up. The year was a wake-up call for car safety in America. Traffic deaths hit a grim milestone that year, topping 50,000 for the first time. That kind of number was impossible to ignore. In response, Congress passed the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act on March 2nd, which took effect and gave the federal government real authority to set vehicle safety standards. Before this, car makers added safety features as add-ons. It was the start of mandatory seatbelts, padded dashboards, and the idea that cars should actually protect people inside them.
If everybody used them, we could save at least 5,000 lives a year. Take it from me, seatbelts work. Get them and use them.
The drive-in. Drive-in theaters reached their peak this year with roughly 4,000 locations across the country. Families packed station wagons with kids in pajamas. Teenage couples occupied the back seats for anything other than watching the movie, and small towns had their own piece of Hollywood magic. A few bucks got you a double feature, maybe a cartoon and all the popcorn you could carry from the snack bar. It was an American ritual at its peak, before suburban sprawl and home video changed everything. Gemini Missions. Before NASA even considered landing on the moon, they launched 5 Gemini missions to adapt to the challenges of navigating space. Gemini 8 in March saw the first successful docking in space, though an emergency forced Neil Armstrong to cut it short. Gemini 9 through 12 followed between June and November, with astronauts practicing spacewalks and orbital maneuvers. Each mission taught them something new about what worked and what didn't. By year's end, NASA had the confidence and know-how to begin seriously considering Apollo.
While working on the Agena, Aldrin attached a tether between the two craft, returning to the Gemini capsule after a highly successful 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Champions. On March 19th, Texas Western made history by starting 5 black players against an all-white Kentucky team in the NCAA championship, winning 72-65 and changing college basketball forever. In April, the Boston Celtics beat the LA Lakers in 7 games for their 8th straight NBA title, with Red Auerbach coaching his final game. The Baltimore Orioles stunned everyone in October, sweeping the Dodgers in the World Series behind 3 consecutive shutouts. On November 19th, Notre Dame and Michigan State played to a controversial 10-10 tie dubbed the Game of the Century. The Montreal Canadiens won the '66 Stanley Cup, defeating Detroit's Red Wings in 6 games to capture their 14th championship.
Holding the ball. That's it. The game is over, and John Havlicek is running for his life.
Gotcha. On April 8th, Time magazine hit the newsstands with a cover that stopped people in their tracks. Against a stark background, red letters asked, "Is God dead?" No image, no photo, just the question. It was the first time the magazine had run a text-only cover, and it sparked outrage and fascination in equal measure. Talk about an original clickbait. The article inside explored whether religion still mattered in modern America. Churches denounced it. Readers canceled their subscriptions, but everyone was talking about it. For Time magazine, that was what mattered. New products. Vicks introduced Nyquil, the nighttime cold medicine that promised to help you sleep through your fever, runny nose, and cough. It became a pharmacy staple almost overnight. Procter & Gamble rolled out Scope mouthwash, a minty green alternative to Listerine that got you ready for your next date. And Milton Bradley released Twister, the game that puts your right hand on red and your left foot on green. Old-fashioned people who didn't like fun called it sex in a box. This had the opposite effect on those who bought it, boosting sales. It gave you an excuse to invite that attractive neighbor over for a game. Johnny Carson played it on The Tonight Show with Eva Gabor in May, and suddenly everyone wanted one.
Scope's great. My breath feels fresh. Thanks. Now try keeping in step.
Scope in the morning, every morning.
Healthcare. The year brought two major medical milestones. On July 1st, Medicare finally kicked in after President Lyndon B. Johnson signed it into law, allowing millions of seniors to afford seeing a doctor. Then in December, a surgical team at the University of Minnesota did something nobody tried before. They transplanted both the pancreas and a kidney in the same patient. Pretty remarkable when you think about it. One was a policy win, the other a surgical first. But both made a real difference in people's lives.
Medicare will become law on July 1st, 1966. And for Mr. Truman, an historic souvenir from the President.
The right to remain silent. Immediately after the police shouted hands up, the Supreme Court gave suspects 5 words that would echo through every arrest today. On June 13th, the Supreme Court handed down a decision that changed how police do their jobs. In Miranda versus Arizona, the justices ruled 5-4 that suspects must be informed of their rights before being questioned. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. You have the right to an attorney. We've all heard it 1,000 times on TV cop shows. But before this ruling, police didn't have to tell you any of it. Ernesto Miranda's case made it the law.
You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you while you're being questioned. You understand each of these rights I have explained to you?
Yes.
Hit songs. The radio has something for everyone. Simon and Garfunkel's The Sound of Silence hit #1 on January 1st. A haunting folk rock track that almost didn't happen until a producer added electric instruments without telling them. Nancy Sinatra strutted to the top of the charts in February with These Boots Are Made for Walking, an attitude anthem that's still a blast. Percy Sledge released When a Man Loves a Woman in April, a raw soul ballad that became the first song by a black artist to top the UK charts. And in October, the Beach Boys dropped Good Vibrations, a production marvel that took months to record and sounded like nothing else out there.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Now. A group of fed-up activists gathered in Washington and launched a movement that changed everything. National Organization for Women on June 30th. They were fed up with slow progress in workplace discrimination and wanted an organization that would actually push for change. Now started with about 30 members and a clear mission: full equality for women in American society. They went after discriminatory hiring practices, unequal pay, and laws that treated women as second-class citizens. It was a turning point.
The decision to have a child should not be a matter to be decided by the male-dominated legislatures.
Box office hits. The Sound of Music was still packing audiences after its 1965 release, on its way to becoming the highest-grossing film of all time at that point. In fact, it holds the longest first theatrical run in movie history at 147 weeks, almost 3 years. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton brought raw, boozy drama to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which premiered in June and earned Taylor an Oscar. Over in Spain, Sergio Leone was finishing The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, his spaghetti western epic that hit theaters in December and made Clint Eastwood a star. And Fantastic Voyage shrank Raquel Welch and a medical team down to microscopic size for a wild journey through the human body.
There's no name on it.
There's no name here either.
Tower. A sniper turned a college campus into a war zone. On August 1st, a former Marine named Charles Whitman climbed to the observation deck of the University of Texas Tower in Austin and opened fire. For 96 minutes, he shot at people below, killing 14 and wounding dozens more. He had already killed his wife and mother earlier that morning. Police eventually stormed the tower and shot him dead. It was one of the first mass shootings in modern American history, and it left the country stunned and searching for answers that didn't come easy.
One of history's worst mass murders occurred here in Austin today. By official count tonight, 49 persons were hit by gunfire. There are 16 dead and 33 injured.
The last show. On August 29th, the Beatles played their final concert at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. About 25,000 fans showed up, though the stadium held twice that. The band was exhausted from touring, tired of screaming crowds that drowned out their music, and ready to focus on the studio. They played for just 33 minutes. John, Paul, George, and Ringo walked off the stage, and that was it. They never performed a proper concert together again. Fast food boom. The fast food industry was booming. Dunkin' Donuts, which had become a New England favorite since 1950, finally started expanding beyond their home turf. The company began franchising aggressively, betting that America wanted quick coffee and donuts everywhere, not just in Massachusetts. On March 17th, Kentucky Fried Chicken went public on the New York Stock Exchange, giving the Colonel's secret recipe the Wall Street treatment and funding rapid expansion to over 1,500 locations. Meanwhile, Nashville businessman John J. Hooker launched Minnie Pearl's Chicken, named after the Grand Ole Opry comedian. It looked promising at first, but the franchise sold locations faster than it could support them and collapsed in a few years. 2 success stories and 1 cautionary tale about the franchise gold rush.
We'll make dinner. Colonel Sanders already made history by fixing Sunday dinners 7 days a week.
War escalates. Vietnam had become America's war. The year started with 180,000 troops. The draft calls increased, and so did the body count on the nightly news. In June, American planes began bombing Hanoi and Haiphong for the first time. Back home, protests grew louder and more frequent. What started military advisors helping out had turned into a full-scale conflict with no end in sight. The country was divided and getting more so. By year's end, troop levels climbed past 385,000. Artillery and airstrikes pounded the hilltop all day. The smell of dead bodies and burnt trees spread across the entire hill. Iconic cars. This year, we got 2 iconic car lines. Ford introduced the Bronco in August as a rugged, no-nonsense SUV built to compete with Jeep. It was simple, tough, and ready for off-road adventure. Meanwhile, Chevrolet unveiled the Camaro on September 29th, finally giving them an answer to Ford's wildly popular Mustang. The Camaro was sleek, fast, and aimed straight at young buyers who wanted muscle and enduring style.
Smooth as silk on paved roads, Ford's new Bronco gives you synchronized shifting. Bronco Roadster, built for fun.
Governor Reagan. On November 8th, Ronald Reagan, a former actor with no political experience, beat incumbent Pat Brown to become California's governor. It wasn't even close. Reagan won by nearly 1 million votes, and political insiders took notice. Here was a former actor with no political experience who connected with voters tired of campus protests and urban unrest. He promised to clean up the mess at Berkeley and cut government spending. Nobody knew it then, but this was the first step toward the White House.
Yet even as I thank you, I must ask for your continued help. And I do so with a promise to do my utmost to deserve it. Thank you.
New snacks. Pantries across America got a lot more interesting. General Mills introduced Bugles, those cone-shaped corn chips perfect for sticking on your fingertips before eating. Kraft launched Cool Whip in stores, giving home bakers a convenient whip topping that didn't require any actual whipping. Doritos made their debut at Disneyland before hitting grocery stores, starting what would become America's favorite tortilla chip. Quaker rolled out instant oatmeal, promising a hot breakfast in minutes for busy mornings. And 7-Eleven began testing the Slurpee, that frozen brain freeze-inducing drink that became a convenience store staple. Not a bad year for snacking.
No matter what else goes wrong, your topping always turns out tasting right. Non-dairy Cool Whip. If it works for him, it'll work for you.
R.I.P. Walt. The man who built an empire on a cartoon mouse left behind a legacy and one unfinished dream. On December 15th, Walt Disney died of lung cancer at 55. He'd been a chain smoker for decades. Just weeks earlier, he was still planning his next big project, an experimental city in Florida he called Epcot. Disney had built an empire on a cartoon mouse, created the first full-length animated feature, and invented the modern theme park. He won 22 Academy Awards, more than anyone in history. For those who remember him, when he died, it felt like a piece of their childhood went with him.
And Epcot will always be a showcase to the world for the ingenuity and imagination of American free enterprise.
There you have it. If you enjoyed this video, check out our video about 1965.